Thank you for joining us. We'll get started in about 1 minute. Welcome everyone to the value and benefits of an engine maintenance program. We're going to discuss how an engine maintenance program can provide substantial financial and operational benefits to customers by enhancing asset value, protecting against unforeseen costs and unscheduled events anywhere in the world, and maximizing availability and safety. Joining us in today's webinar, Andy Robinson, Rolls-Royce Senior Vice President, Customer Services, Business Aviation, Tony Kiusis, President and CEO of Asset Insight LLC, and Lee Bradshaw, Director of Technical Operations at Cox Aviation. We welcome your questions, and you can just type your questions in the webinar question field, and we'll address them towards the end of the webinar. We'd like to thank Rolls-Royce for sponsoring today's webinar. And we're going to start with 2 poll questions to see whether webinar participants are using engine maintenance programs and their thoughts about them. We'll give about a minute for people to answer the poll questions, and then we'll show the results. Okay, we're showing that most of the participants today are working with engines that are covered by an engine program, 83% versus 17% that are not. Thank you for that. And okay, then the next question, why are engines not on an engine maintenance program? And we'll give that a few more seconds and look at the results of this question. Okay, and here we go. Those who aren't on programs, the majority maintain their own reserves for engine costs. the next highest one, they want to learn more about engine programs, and that's what we're here for. Interesting that 16% said the planes are confusing. A very small percentage said they haven't had a major event and don't expect to. Thank you very much, Lisa. And we're now going to start with Andy Robinson from Rolls-Royce.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everyone at AIN, for hosting this event. And also, I'd like to thank Tony and Lee for joining us. As you said, my name is Andy Robinson. I'm responsible for delivering customer support and services for our business aviation fleet. I've been with Rolls-Royce for just over 40 years, predominantly in customer-facing roles, whether that be in support or service for both airlines, and for the last 11 years for the business aviation fleet. And go to the next slide, please. So this slide is just to give you a little background on Rolls-Royce. We've actually been in business aviation for over 60 years, starting with the Dart engine that powered the Gulfstream 1, and right the way through to our current portfolio of engines that are predominantly powering today the Citation 10, the Embraer Legacy, the Gulfstream 3, 4, 450, 5, 550, 650, and the Bombardier Global Expresses, with the new engine that was launched at the end of last year, the Pearl 15, on the new Bombardier Global Express 5500 and 6500. And also we're excited with our brand new engine, the Pearl 700, that is currently due in flight test with Gulfstream on their flagship G700 program. We've actually also been in the Power by the Hour. We actually licensed Power by the Hour in the 1960s. So in terms of maintenance programs, we have close to 60 years of experience with that. And all of that today is managed out of our headquarters. In the top left corner there, you'll see Dahlewitz in Germany. Dahlewitz is around 45 minutes drive southeast of Berlin. We've been in that building or that site for over 30 years. And it started with a joint venture with BMW. So the BR, the BMW Rolls-Royce engines, the BR 710, 715 in the regional fleet, and the 725 have all been designed and manufactured there, as have the TAE in the last years have also been manufactured there. We've actually built over 8,000 engines out of the Dahlewitz site, and it is recognized in Rolls-Royce as not only the headquarters for business aviation, but also the center of excellence for two-shaft engines. For those that don't know, our large engines that power the large airliners are three-shaft, so they have an additional shaft, an IP shaft, and the smaller engines, the engines that power business aviation and our regional fleet, are two-shaft engines. So this is our two-shaft center of excellence. We also have some new technology development there, such as the UltraFan and the power gearbox. So it's a significant site, and that is the headquarters for business aviation. On the top right, you can see Indianapolis. Indianapolis is the home of the AE 3007 engine, which powers the Citation 10 and the Embraer Legacy. Also in Indianapolis, and this picture here is of our customer training center, which services business aviation as a prime site. We also have sites in Asia and Europe where we can perform training. And then also we have on-wing services, which is our business aviation team of mobile repair technicians that we manage and deploy around the world from Indianapolis. Below that is the brand new Reston Town Center building for Rolls-Royce. It's actually the Washington, D.C. North American headquarters. And that is the main site for business aviation and the customer-facing team. So I'm located there with a team of other customer-facing individuals that support the business aviation fleet. And then the next main site we have is in Montreal, Canada, and that is Rolls-Royce Canada. And Rolls-Royce Canada is our center of excellence for MRO on the larger business aviation fleet, such as the TAE and the BR 710 programs. Next slide. So when we talk about maintenance programs, and when Rolls-Royce is considered maintenance programs, we talk to our customers, and we understand that our customers buy a business jet to maximize the aircraft's availability, and also to operate as almost a time machine. They want to be able to travel when they want to travel and to be able to go where they need to go. And they also want and expect to be able to work on board the aircraft. So we focused our maintenance program around maximizing aircraft availability. And as part of that, and to ensure availability, you have to look at 3 different types of maintenance. So the 3 different types of maintenance are preventative. And by preventative maintenance, I'm talking about engine health monitoring, and we provide engine health monitoring depending on the aircraft's capability, either as a download that's sent to us monthly, but we've been working over the past years to improve that capability so that we get a download of data every flight. And with the later aircraft, there is a continual flow of data through to us, so we can see the health of an engine at any and all time during its flight operation. There are also service bulletins that need to be incorporated to help prevent any events and to improve its performance and reliability, and then obviously training, as we talked about. There's scheduled maintenance, and this is depending on whether the engine is managed on an hourly inspection or on condition, or as a hard time or a calendar condition. So there are routine scheduled maintenance that's needed to be done, whether that be boroscopes or inspections. And then there's unscheduled maintenance. And unscheduled maintenance is if there's ever an AOG or an event that occurs. And so we've looked at our maintenance program and focused our capabilities globally to be able to serve all the different types of maintenance that an operator can have, which ultimately ensures aircraft availability, efficiency, and reliability. Next slide, please. So how does a maintenance program work? Well, typically you pay a fixed dollar per flying hour, and that fixed dollar per flying hour is for a contract term. And in that contract term, under at least the Rolls-Royce program, particularly the new Corporate Care Enhanced program, any unexpected event, any planned event, and whether that be an AOG, a nacelle, power plant related event, an unscheduled shop visit, anything that occurs on the engine during that period of time is covered by Rolls-Royce as part of that fixed dollar per engine flying hour. The dollar per fixed engine flying hour is effectively your fixed cost, and any over and above any risk of cost exposure is then transferred to Rolls-Royce. So if, for example, you've paid in, say, $100,000 and you have a $1 million event, the exposure is all Rolls-Royce. You don't have to pay anything more than what you've already paid in. And if there is an event, then there is no increase in rates. So your rates remain per the fixed dollar per flying hour coverage that we negotiated and contracted at the start of the agreement. How is engine maintenance evolving? So I think a big change and a big evolution for us is around the engine vibration monitoring system. The Pearl 15 and the Pearl family of engines has got the latest engine vibration and health monitoring unit. That unit is capable of monitoring over 10,000 parameters, which means that we can now, for the first time, monitor accessories on the engine. So we can see an accessory, and most event or aircraft operational disruption is typically caused by an accessory on the engine that prevents you from flying. Most of those accessories can now be measured through the engine vibration health monitoring system. And we can see if, for example, a fuel unit is slow to respond, or if an igniter is slow to light off. We can see that through this health monitoring system, and we can proactively have those units replaced. So it effectively ensures greater aircraft availability and less downtime. We've also spent quite a bit of time around digital and digital technical publications, particularly. Any Rolls-Royce operator, hopefully, of the 710 and Pearl right now will have experienced our new technical publications that we launched last year. The technical publications are becoming much more interactive and intuitive and much more modernized. And then another big change for us is around virtual reality training. We've been developing virtual reality training with our customers for the last year or so, but with the current challenges of the pandemic, it enabled us to accelerate that. And we now offer fully immersive virtual reality training for the BR725 program. We're going to expand it to other models in the near future. And Lee actually was one of the first ever customers to help us develop the training, and he and his team went through the training recently. He also helped us develop the equipment, because apparently it's not particularly robust if someone stands on it. So that was useful, and we are now modifying equipment to take those challenges. But we've performed training for customers now and for service centres, and effectively our instructor is there with you. Even though he's based in Indianapolis, our instructor is able to talk you through a fully immersive training at your own base. So it's been hugely successful, and it's something that we're going to continue to develop. Next slide, please. So here are some of the direct advantages of an engine maintenance program. Residual value benefits. We see aircraft sell quicker, approximately 100 days faster than an aircraft that's not on the program. They typically sell for more. And when it comes to transfers, the program, or most programs, our program at least, is fully transferable with no transfer fees. As I said before, it brings with it predictable, budgetable maintenance cost, so it eliminates any large spikes in maintenance bills. Risk transfer, cost risk transfer is transferred to Rolls-Royce for our program. And then we also have a global infrastructure, and we're able to give priority access. And by that, I mean, through the maintenance program, we already have a contracted obligation to deliver it, so we don't have to chase down quotes, etc. So we have priority access to our global network of spare parts, lease engines, and most importantly, our 24/7 availability center that's located in Berlin, and our full suite of business aviation teams around the world. And I'll give more details on that in a couple of slides. Next page, please. So one of the key differentiators and one of the responsibilities of an OEM, particularly when we have an engine maintenance program, is to be able to deliver capability to a global customer base. We have over 2,500 aircraft under an engine maintenance program with Rolls-Royce, and they are located all around the world. And while it's true that the majority of the fleet, by that I'd say 60% of the fleet is in North America, the North American fleet in normal times fly all over the world as well. So it's very important that we have capability wherever you fly. So to do that, and Rolls-Royce do recognize, and I want to stress that Rolls-Royce do have a dedicated team to business aviation. I think some manufacturers may mix it with the airlines teams, but we chose not to, because we recognize that business aviation customers have a very different requirement and a very different focus. So we have a dedicated team of customer managers around the world. We have AOG support and remote site rescue capability around the world through our on-wing services. We have 65 technicians approximately in 16 different locations that are specialists in the more complex tasks that are required on the engine. We have the authorized service center network where we've partnered with our OEMs and other third-party service centers to deliver corporate care. In our case, corporate care services. We have over 75 of those spread around the world. We have the engine shops, and our prime one being Rolls-Royce Canada, but we also have agreements in place with Dallas Airmotive and Standard Aero. We have our on-wing services technicians that travel around the world. As I said, we have 65 of those located in 16 locations, but they are managed out of our on-wing services facility in Indianapolis. We have spares in 9 different locations around the world that we can sell, but we also have some stores that are only available for corporate care customers because we can't trade out of those sites. So we have stores in China, Singapore, Dubai, Europe, and across America, and some parts also in South America. And then we've also invested in lease engines, and this is a very important element, of course, when your engines are in the shop. So we have approximately 154 lease engines located around the world to support our fleet. And all of that is managed by our availability center in Berlin that works on a 24/7 basis, fully empowered to deliver whatever support needs are required. They can launch spare parts, launch mobile repair teams, launch lease engines, and if need be, launch an alternative lift such as a charter aircraft to replace your aeroplane. Next page, please. We thought we'd give an example of an AOG, and I noticed that many of you don't have had no events, which is great, but there are events, and with our fleet that we manage is around 3,800 aircraft, and we manage roughly 3,000 types of events, not necessarily AOGs a year. So we have a lot of experience in dealing with the logistics and challenges of supporting customers around the world. So just as an example of the costs that you can expect that would be covered under a maintenance, or at least our maintenance program, we would cover obviously the 24/7 operational service desk, the mobile repair team, travel costs, deployment logistics, the tooling that's required, the troubleshooting that's required, any parts that need to be required, any return of the repaired parts and the repair of those parts are covered, the components themselves, and in some cases this could be some very large parts such as a thrust reverser that's got corrosion is covered. We cover charter flights, whether that's a charter flight to take the part to you or a charter for an aircraft to come and help you complete your mission. So this is just an example of the advantage of an AOG situation, which adds up to roughly $380,000 if you're not on the program. But if you are on the program, it's fully covered, and you have an experienced team of people that are used to managing some very complex AOG recoveries in some extreme locations. And the picture on the left may be of interest. This is an igloo that we had commissioned and built for us, and it came after we had an AOG on a remote island that had no facilities, and so we had to do an engine change on that remote island without a hangar. This igloo now has been built. It can go onto the back of any business aviation aircraft. It's fully self-contained on a pallet. It has its own generator, and it inflates itself, and once inflated, it's got heating, lighting, and you can do a full engine change, transfer the material from the removed engine onto the replacement engine, and reinstall it, all contained within the igloo. So it's a kind of a portable hangar, Fortunately, we haven't had to deploy it many times, but we have deployed it. We deployed it recently in an event in the Maldives. But it's a very cool piece of kit that we developed. Next slide, please. And so this is my final slide. As I hopefully demonstrated, the maintenance programs typically provide a comprehensive and innovative care. We do spend a lot of time talking to our customers, and we have a corporate customer council, or C3, that typically sits twice a year. It's been running for 9 to 10 years, and that C3 council, and we have two councils, one international and one North America, and we have around 20 to 25 customers that sit on each, helped us develop the location and the needs of our network, focus on availability. So the 75 service centers I talked about, the on-9 part stores, the 65 on-wing service technicians, the lease engines, and the alternate lift requirements that are needed have been helped to be developed and polished, if you like, in terms of its efficiency through our customer input. Equally, they helped us with the 24/7 support, which has now enabled us to deliver a 99% averted missed trip performance on a regular basis. And on average, we see around a 24-hour AOG return to service, which again were metrics that were established by talking to our customers and goals that were set by our customers. We've invested a lot of time in technical publications and in particular digital. I talked about the virtual reality training, but we also developed a digital tool to manage our service center network that makes that seamless for our customers. So if a customer goes to a service center and has work done, they do not see a bill from the service center will transact directly with us. And we have what's called an OSD tool, that's the Operational Service Desk tool, which is a tool that we share with our OEMs, and we collaborate with our OEMs on the rescue and recovery of any customer AOG. So we can see and coordinate the deployment of OEM technicians, our technicians, spare parts, and we can share that and communicate all on from the same song sheet, if you will, as we look at this cloud-based portal. We are developing a new portal for business aviation. Actually had a demonstration of it yesterday, so we expect that new portal to go live towards the end of this year. And we've developed the new EVHMU, which we talked about, which over and above the additional parameters and the ability to measure the accessories, it also has the ability to have two-way communications. So if you allow us, we can monitor a ground run, for example, remotely, and help troubleshoot an issue from the availability center in Berlin. In terms of how corporate care has evolved, I mentioned that Power by the Hour came out in the 1960s, and I think it's evolved piece by piece since then. I think the biggest change, though, came with our corporate care enhanced coverage, which took our standard corporate care and all the feedback we received from many customers and customer advisory boards, and came up with corporate care enhanced, which includes the nacelle, where the nacelle is provided by Rolls-Royce, but also took away all the small irritants, the gaps in the coverage that were there that Rolls-Royce many times didn't know about. But if, in effect, if you're on corporate care enhanced, if we provide it, it's covered, and you should only ever have to pay the $1 per flying hour that we've agreed, and there should be no additional costs in coverage, because corporate care as a standalone and corporate care enhanced cover all corrosion, all erosion. There's no exclusions for harsh environments. It covers it all except for negligence and FOD. it's all inclusive solution ultimately brings, we believe, increased asset value and a much more planned maintenance budget for our customers and a much greater availability of their asset. And I believe that is me.
Very good. Thank you very much, Andy. And now we're going to hand it over to Tony Cusis.
Thank you very much. Is the first slide up? I'm not, there we go. Okay. Following on to Andy's excellent presentation on Rolls-Royce, at its core, Asset Insight is an aircraft appraisal company. As such, we track the value of hourly cost maintenance programs on a regular basis, primarily by tracking the transaction value differential between an aircraft enrolled and assets not enrolled on a program. We routinely calculate the value of program coverage for aircraft owners and operators, and the figure often surprises them. Engine maintenance programs generally provide benefits two ways. One, through an increase in the aircraft's residual value, and no, please go back. One is through the aircraft's residual value, and two is through the benefits received in exchange for payments for program coverage. And some of these benefits include, or some of the benefits provide, I should say, value relative to the cost for maintaining the aircraft, while others provide value directly to the aircraft owner. My goal today is to explore these benefits and the value they create. Next slide. There are four basic criteria that determine the impact of an engine maintenance program on an aircraft's overall value. The first is the level of the program's coverage. Is it a fully paid program, or does it provide pro rata event coverage? For those unfamiliar with this, pro rata coverage it's offered by some programs, and it's associated with the engines that were not enrolled on a maintenance program when they were new. Under a pro rata coverage, the client is responsible for the percentage of the time accrued by the engine prior to program enrollment. So, for example, if an engine consumed 1,000 hours before program enrollment and a scheduled maintenance event occurs at 4,000 hours, the operator is responsible for 25% of the total cost of the event, whatever that cost turns out to be at the time the event is completed. If coverage is under a fully paid-in program, the program pays 100% of the scheduled event cost. In most cases, both options fully cover unscheduled maintenance events. Certainly the fully paid-in program covers unscheduled maintenance events. Not surprisingly, a fully paid program is more valuable than the pro rata program. Second, what are the specific components of the maintenance events covered by the program? Well, you know, if you think about it, in the cell, most operators are shocked when they learn the cost, often the hard way, of repairing or replacing a thrust reverser. Does it have corrosion? Does it offer corrosion coverage? Many operators are surprised to learn how expensive corrosion repairs can be. Does it cover life-limited parts? Usually, this is available as optional coverage in programs today. It has a greater impact on the value of older aircraft, as many are reaching their life-limited parts life limit. The value impact of current production aircraft is not as great, as the new engine LLP cycle requirements are so far out into the future, they will probably coincide with the aircraft's operational and financial obsolescence. The third item that impacts the value is the percentage of the aircraft fleet that is covered by an engine program. If only 10% of the fleet is covered, the program has less impact on the aircraft's value than if 80% of the fleet is covered. In fact, if 80% of the fleet is covered and your aircraft is not covered, your aircraft's value will probably suffer a deduction due to its lack of coverage. And to a lesser extent, the percentage of the fleet that is listed for sale. The reason is, think about it this way, if 5% of the fleet is listed for sale, hourly cost maintenance program coverage is likely to have a greater value impact than if 25% of the fleet is listed for sale, since buyers will have more choices and therefore pricing leverage if a greater percentage of the fleet is listed for sale. How quickly and how far apart these two lines that we're showing the value enrolled on HCMP and the value not enrolled on HCMP, how far they will move apart and how quickly they will move apart, that will vary based on market conditions. But the value of an hourly cost maintenance program to the aircraft operator and its owner could be substantial. So let's explore that. Next slide, please. Whoops, I think we went too far. There we go. There are some misconceptions about engine maintenance programs and that are worth reviewing. One is that engine programs provide no value while the aircraft is under warranty. That's just simply not true. These programs, in fact, provide real value during the warranty period through coverage of things like line maintenance, parts and labor, training, technical publications, which Andy went into a little while ago, engine health monitoring. Again, you saw some of the capabilities that Rolls-Royce has, and coverage of unscheduled event expenses usually not covered by the engine warranty. The value of these that we show under risk mitigation benefits, and shown by the green line on the graph. These benefits can include things like a loaner engine, engine removal and reinstallation, engine freight costs, logistical support, which can run into some serious money if you ever suffer an event on some far-off destination, troubleshooting labor, and alternative lift, which on a large aircraft is likely to be substantial. These risk mitigation benefits may or may not be covered under warranty, and so if you have a warranty event while the program is, while the engine warranty is likely to pay to repair the engine, all of these other benefits are under a program are actually costs that you would have to incur. Then at the time of resale, you're looking at an increase in the aircraft's value and a reduction in the time it takes to remarket the asset, something that Andy was talking about earlier. In point of fact, we often run analytics for clients that proves the value of items listed under these certain benefits received, and it exceeds the fees paid to enroll a new engine on a program, which is shown on the graph as the differential between the solid red and the solid green lines. A second misconception is that one is financially better off by enrolling an engine on a program once the warranty expires. Again, not true. The higher hourly rate associated with enrollment at, say, the 5-year point, along with the cost of the buy-in fee, which you would have to pay, those will increase the total cost of the program enrollment going forward for the operator, which is shown on the graph as the difference between the dashed red line, which starts at year 5, and the solid green line. At the same time, an operator will not have secured the benefits and the value that could have been received had they enrolled the engine when it was new, and they will have assumed the potential expense associated with the risk mitigation benefits during that early time period when they weren't enrolled. So you're actually paying the buy-in fee and essentially not getting some of the benefits that you could have had earlier on, and you're going to pay a higher fee. Lastly, as I mentioned earlier, these programs provide certain benefits whose value goes directly to the aircraft owner, potentially very valuable benefits that owners often fail to consider. These include things like an increase in the aircraft's residual value. That's easy, but there's a decrease in the time required to remarket the aircraft. Andy pointed to 100 days. Our studies show that while the number of days will vary based on a number of factors, from our perspective, a good rule of thumb is about 4 months remarketing period differential between an aircraft enrolled and one not enrolled on a program. And the risk mitigation benefits, they shift both the cost burden and the workload, which people forget when things go wrong, from the owner-operator to the to the maintenance program services provider. So that, in a nutshell, is what you're looking at when you're talking about the differential in the value between a program and not in a program from an appraisal company's point of view. And that concludes my presentation.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tony. And now we're going to do our third poll question. What do you see as the main benefits of an engine program? We'll give about 30 seconds, 45 seconds for people to answer this one. Okay, that should be good enough. Let's see the results. And biggest one, worry-free cost control. Improved support from the manufacturers next. Spares availability, followed by more efficient use of engine data to help manage the fleet. I suspect those are all important considerations, but cost control looks like that's the most popular. Okay, now we're going to move on to Lee Bradshaw at Cox Aviation. Lee, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, Matt, and everyone else. Thank you for having me today. And my name is Lee Bradshaw. I'm the Director of Technical Operations for Cox Aviation, and we're a Part 91 operator based in Atlanta, Georgia. Our company has owned and operated aircraft since 1939, and I've been fortunate enough to be part of this organization for over 21 years now. Our fleet currently consists of 5 jet aircraft, 1 light jet, 3 super midsize, and 1 ultra long range, and is represented by 3 different engine OEMs. And all of our aircraft are enrolled on the manufacturer's engine maintenance programs. You've heard this afternoon from the OEM and Andy Robinson, and of course the broker Tony Kousas, and I'm going to share you the perspective from the end user, what it looks like from the operator side of the coin. And that will come in 2 different aspects. One is from the owner's point of view, and then from a technical point of view. If you would please advance the slide. Technicians today, and we consider ourselves here at Cox Enterprises to be asset managers, and because the way we maintain and manage these flying machines has a direct input or impact on the resale value of that aircraft. And of course, Tony went to great detail of explaining all that in just a few moments ago, so I will not belabor the point. But there are other aspects to a maintenance program that are considerations for the owners as well. One of them, and then this falls in our ballpark as well, is the budget requirements. I understand the cost that our industry peers see for an engine program, and a lot of people, or some people, prefer to have that money in reserve and absorb those spikes related to unscheduled events, midlife and overhaul inspection costs, technical service bulletins, and things of that nature. And then they buy into the program just prior to the sale. Well, we prefer not. And in fact, our company sees it just the other way. We think it's more advantageous not to see those wild spikes associated with those various events, but more to have a flat line, stabilized cost month after month, and have predictable financial considerations. So 2 points there: investment protection and predictable financial cost. Please advance the slide. From the technical point of view, well, I can tell you as an A&P technician, there's what's not to love about the engine maintenance program: the parts, the labor, the service bulletins, midlife inspections, engineering costs related to technical variances, publications, training for the technicians. All that's covered in an engine maintenance program. And if you have one of the premium programs like Corporate Care Enhanced, you have nacelle coverage and alternative lift. And I tell you, this is where it really comes into play here. Our aircraft travel all around the globe, and it is impossible for me to know all the import and export laws to the various countries that we travel to, nor do I have knowledge about the work visa requirements, despite the fact that we have a highly trained and qualified technical staff on this. The time component just to get to them to where that aircraft may be down for maintenance is going to be a consideration, but it could be even longer to get that work visa. Nor do I have the intimate relationship with service centers around the globe. Whereas companies like Rolls-Royce, they've invested the time and money to audit the various service centers and develop an extensive network of authorized service centers. They've gone in and vetted their safety management program as well as the training for their technicians. They have expediters and shippers on retainer who do know all the various laws and can get the parts and tooling to those locations much faster than I can. And if I were to do that, me and my staff, it would take us several days, if not weeks, just to manage that. Whereas on an engine program with one phone call, all those dominoes start falling into place in addition to alternative lift. And so what that equates to at the end of the day is less downtime for our aircraft and more time for that aircraft to be in the air to get our people where they need to be. So in summary, our company is acutely aware of the inherent value of these engine maintenance programs and its direct impact on asset value as well as aircraft availability. And we see these programs as a force multiplier to providing the premium service that our owners and operators have come to expect from us.
Thank you very much, Lee. That was interesting to hear from the operator's perspective and especially from the technical side. But I have to admit that I'm dying to know, what was the virtual reality training like? And were you the one that stepped on the equipment?
Yes, I was. You know, actually, Rolls-Royce, as part of the C3 committee, had demoed that for us at a conference in Phoenix, and it was very impressive at that time. And our group was sent the goggles, the Oculus goggles, and it was actually me that stepped on the cable. Now, the benefit of the the training, as Andy mentioned, especially during a pandemic, is the instructors at Indianapolis and our technicians can either be at home or at the hangar experience this training. But the cables are connected to a laptop via HDMI cable, and you can either sit or stand. And I had been sitting, and when I chose to stand, I inadvertently stepped on the cable, and I guess I stretched the cable. So Andy has not missed an opportunity to gig me about that particular cable. But to answer your question, it's very impressive technology, and all of our technicians, all 9 of them, were extremely appreciative and thankful to be part of that beta test group.
Excellent. Sounds interesting. I'd love to try that sometime. Andy, we have a question on the if there's no increase in the fee from a covered event, is that for the complete term of the contract or for a year? Or, and actually this also relates to how long is a contract? I mean, is it multiple years? Do things change every year?
So yeah, good question, Matt. Thank you. Contracts are 10 years, and we agree a fee at the start of the contract, and then the only increase on that fee is through the contractually constrained escalation formula that we agree. So there's no other changes, and that escalation formula, if it comes back to say that the prices increase year on year is 0, then the price increase year on year is 0. So it's very much dependent on the indices in the calculation in the formula, but no, there's no increase in the fee post an event. That risk, if you like, goes to us.
Okay, great. So Andy, we've got another question about charter coverage for AOG events, and the questioner wants to know if that's new with Corporate Care Enhanced, because they had an issue and when they were under corporate care, and apparently charter wasn't available. Charter support wasn't available unless it was for an actual engine.
So I think if I understand the question correctly, so the troubleshooting and the travel time for our technicians is now included under Corporate Care Enhanced. It wasn't included under Corporate Care. So that is feedback that we took on and we've addressed. In terms of charter, I think you mean alternate lift. Alternate lift is an option available to us. We obviously it's an extreme option because it's an extremely expensive option, but it is an option that the team have available to meet the customer's next planned trip. It's not necessarily limited to engine changes. I think earlier versions of the contract limited to engine changes, but we have it as an option available to us if need be, and we do deploy alternate lift. Fortunately, not too frequently, but we do deploy it for situations that are not purely relating to an engine change.
Okay, so here's a question for Tony, and the question is, how can the engine programs and the lenders work together to help convince clients of the values of these programs?
Well, in a lot of cases, the lenders are actually the best salespeople that these programs have. In today's environment, with new aircraft and with on-condition engines, the lenders will often give the operator 2 ways of securing the lender's investment in the asset. One is that they will bring the aircraft, if the aircraft ever comes back, or if they actually have a return provisions at some point, then the engines have to be overhauled before they will come back to them, or they need to be on a program. And the easiest choice, of course, is to put them on a program. And that's one of the ways that they sort of work together, is through the financial exposure to the client that the financial services company has. But when you look at it in the industry, the engine program providers and the financial services companies have very close relationships in dealing with the ultimate aircraft owner operator already, and they do work hand in hand very well. It's been my experience, having worked for both sides of that fence. I can tell you that the relationships are really pretty good, pretty strong.
Excellent. And then we had another question, Andy or Tony maybe, and that is why do we see it just as an industry less participation with engines and aircraft like turboprops and helicopters? I suspect it's the more costly the asset, the more valuable these programs are. Is that what it is?
Well,
I might have to defer to Tony.
Yeah,
I'm not in that market.
From our perspective, we ask operators on a number of occasions why if they've listed the aircraft on, or if they've enrolled their turboprop on a program, and very few turboprops get enrolled in these programs. You're relative to the larger aircraft. Turboprop take on these engine programs is in the neighborhood of about 15%. Most of the turboprop operators don't ever think they're going to get to the overhaul. And one of the reasons is if you're flying 100 hours a year, and if the overhaul is at 3,000 hours, you're so far away that you just think, well, I'm never going to get there, so why should I bother? The reality is that the same value applies to turboprops as it does to large engines, which is, if you have an engine failure, you move both the cost and the operational burden to the provider, as opposed to having to do it by yourself. That's a perfectly good reason to be on a program. But that's the main reason that we see fewer turboprops enrolled on a program, is really how far out the event occurs. Now, a lot of these turboprops are not only close to the event, a lot of them are suffering the event, and the operator would love to have been on a program at that point.
Right. It's like wanting to buy insurance after something happens.
Yeah.
Lee, are you the one that's responsible for overseeing the program and looking at the information that's being captured by the engine and being sent to Rolls-Royce or to the engine manufacturers? And is this helpful information for you?
Yes, it is very helpful. The engine health and trend monitoring program has increased the reliability of the engine exponentially, because they're able to capture the problem before it actually becomes a problem, if that makes sense. So yes, we see a great deal of value in that, and that's another aspect of the program that we like quite a bit. Future versions of the aircraft are coming out with, that's automatic now. It sends it out over the Wi-Fi system of the aircraft, and so the nice thing about it is all that information is transferred to the OEM, like Rolls-Royce, and they process it, and then at the end of the month you get a very nice report saying your aircraft is trending nicely and it's all in the green, or it could flag something for you that you can address in a timely manner. So again, another almost unspoken benefit of an engine program is you're on that EHTM able to capture those things before they become an issue.
Excellent. Andy, a question for you, and that is, in terms of worldwide coverage, how robust is the coverage in Africa? There's more and more business jets moving to Africa, and we are seeing a little growth there.
Yeah, so we have agreements in place with some service centers, and we operate. We describe it as like a hub and spoke. So to be a hub, you have to have a certain level of capabilities, and the spoke has less capabilities. There are some service centers in Africa that are spokes of a hub in Dubai, for example. So we would cover an event in Africa, and we've had some challenging ones, I will say, but we would cover them with our service centres, supplemented by our on-wing services team. And parts would be sent to Africa via our store in Dubai. I'm not going to say it's easy, and some countries have some very challenging, Lee mentioned it, visa requirements, but we have agreements in place with a number of companies that specialise in getting access. And as I say, the spoke agreements we have with the service centres also provides us some on-site cover.
And Andy, a few questioners are asking, can government aircraft participate in corporate care?
It's a good question. It depends what the registration is. So we do have government aircraft that are on corporate care, providing that they're not military registered.
Okay. And maybe Andy and Lee can address it, or Tony, but the question is, what about the advantages or drawbacks of an engine manufacturer's program versus a program offered by the aircraft OEM? I mean, I don't think OEMs typically include engine maintenance in their programs unless they partner with the engine OEM, right?
Correct.
You're talking about the airframe OEM.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, they would be partnering with the engine OEM to provide that. That's been our experience.
Yeah, and I'm afraid I have no other insight on that. We maintain the OEM's program on all our aircraft.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lee. And then Andy, on the virtual courses, do these have to be approved by the regulators? And if that's the case for a particular customer, will Rolls-Royce help the customer make sure that meets the approval requirements?
So the course that we've developed is the BL725 course, and it's a familiarization course. So it's not the full-blown line maintenance course that we do in Indianapolis yet, at least. So it's a familiarization course. It is approved, and if customers need help with their authorities, we can help them. But I just wanted to be clear, it's more of a familiarization course as opposed to a full line maintenance course that you would need to maybe obtain a license.
Okay, but are there further developments in the courses planned?
Yes, for sure. We actually launched, well, Lee, you probably remember better than me. It's I think it was early June that we did our first course, and we're now doing one in the Middle East for a service center. And based on feedback and response, I think it's fair to say that it's been overwhelmingly positive. So that gives us obviously the clear guidance to continue to develop it further.
I think it's about time to wrap things up. Andy, Tony, and Lee, we appreciate your participation and thank you for Rolls-Royce's sponsorship. And this, for everyone participating, this webinar was recorded, and the recording and the slides will be shared with everyone tomorrow. Those who weren't able to participate can also access this as well. And if we didn't get to your question, we will follow up directly with a response. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.